Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Yesterday, we have discussed the 3D printing processes one. In that, we have covered four kinds of processes, that is VAT photopolymerization process, material jetting, binder jetting, and material extrusion process. So these are the four kinds of processes we have discussed. And during this lecture, sheet lamination, powder bed, and directed energy. So these are the things, three processes we are going to see. Also, various post-processing techniques, and finally, with the fabrication challenges. So this is what I have planned for this presentation. So we are going to see the overview of these three processes. However, we are going to have expert speakers rather than. My lecture will be followed by Professor A. Kumar. So he is going to give a different perspective, that is material science perspective of metal 3D printing. Right after my presentation, he is going to talk the material aspects of metal 3D printing process. And of course, we have one external speaker from NITK Surathkal. He is going to cover on modeling part of metal 3D printing processes. And of course, Manjaya is going to talk on the metal 3D printing, but he has his own postdoctoral fellow in this area. He's going to talk his experience, his postdoctoral experience at France, and also the powder characterization and powder preparation methods he's going to talk. But my job here is to give an overview of the sheet lamination, powder bed fusion, and directed energy deposition. So these are the three. Predominantly, these are metal processed 3D printing processes. Though the previous four processes also we have discussed some of them. Nowadays, even material extrusion process also can capable of printing in metals. And of course, binder jetting is also can capable of producing in metals. Even material jetting also, like a Vadar and other systems, even it can produce or Joules printing. So that is also, though it is a material jetting system, which perhaps it can capable of printing in metals. And coming to the VAT photopolymerization process, yesterday we have discussed VAT photopolymerization process. Normally it is a polymers, that is epoxy resins, but now you can produce the ceramics parts also. That's what we have talked yesterday on the VAT photopolymerization process. Under that, how to process the ceramic material also in VAT photopolymerization process. So anyway, we'll move on to the first process. Today's first process is sheet lamination. So the name itself, it is a sheet lamination, means the raw material may be in the form of a sheet. sheet or paper or even a metal sheet or a metal tape or a sheet in the form of sheet, metal, paper, even ceramic or composite. So it can be a composite or it can be a polymer, it can be a paper. Even if you see the sheet lamination process, the sheet lamination process, the well-known name is a laminated object manufacturing called LOM, LOM. The LOM process started by Helicis. So it is one among uh, the first generation or during early 90s, along with the Stratasys and along with the 3D systems SLA, this technology started. The Helicis is the first guy to started this laminated object manufacturing, but now no more LOM, that is got outdated, that technology, but it has added a different flavor under this sheet lamination or under this laminated object manufacturing called LOM. So that is from either MCAR. MCAR is the Irish company, and even you have Impossible Objects is another company where we can even produce the fiber reinforced composites. And of course, there is a process called ultrasonic consolidation. You can even produce metal parts. So in a brief, LOM process now capable of printing in paper kind material like Heli system earlier. Now it is MCAR, where the material will be predominantly a paper, or it can be a composite, or it can be a fiber reinforced composite, the material, or even it can be a metal from ultrasonic consolidation technique. So for the benefit of the first time users, the LOM, majority of the people knowing what is a laminated object manufacturing, though I will play this video, we'll have some recap. So the raw material is in the form of a sheet, so in the form of a rolls, so it will be coming from one side to other side, so it will be collected on the other side, and the paper kind of material is coated with a binder at the bottom, and the top, which you can see, so there is a laser. So laser is doing a cross hatching, means it is not creating the cross section, in fact, so it is leaving the cross section and it is cross hatching the other portion. This is the unique approach. Normally any process, so it has to trace the cross section, but except this, and of course it has a more wastage also. Normally we'll be claiming is a zero waste, but that code should be excluded for this LOM process, where you can see a lot of wastage is happening here. So this is only for the LOM, that too a kind of organic material like a wood or a paper based system. Now then people realized, so if you want to cut a paper kind of a material, a laser is not needed. Laser is a costly element. So then that's the reason Heli systems are gone out of the business. So after all, you are making some kind of a paper or a wood kind of a parts, but your machine is costly and you have lasers in it. Then there is a company called MCAR from Irish technology. So they have replaced. See, if you are coming in between and you are disturbing the entire class, okay, it's not fair. So you have LOM system. So we are tracking, we are lasting the track of concentration if we are doing this kind of So, MCAR, that is an Irish company, so they have realized it doesn't require a laser to cut a paper kind of a material. Then they have replaced the laser with some kind of a knife, and even they have come out with inkjet printing also. They have incorporated to get a multiple colors. So if you go through this video, you'll come to know that this MCAR technology is using a different approach than the LOM system. It's almost like looking a kind of all-in-one machine, or a bigger laser printer. Like it will accept different formats, and it is something like a printer. It looks like our domestic printer, 2D printer. Exactly, the size is also in that way. Like paper is also, which you can see, the paper is roll paper is there, and adapted build, and of course it is going to have some inkjet printing in it to get the different colors. So then finally you will be getting the parts in a different colors. Of course it will be very good for the artistry or kind of art applications or architectural applications. It's a very cheap machine, so it doesn't have any lasers, or it doesn't have any sophisticated things. Like it's basically the extension of 2D printer, it seems. Why? Because the raw material is also paper. So that is about the MCAR process. And there are a lot of developments are happening in this. Even people are able to make fiber reinforced composites also through LOM. So that is from impossible objects. So you can even make a fiber reinforced composite parts like this. So anyway, you have to start with the CAD model, and then that CAD model will be sent to the software, and then slicing, and then which you can see there is a fiber sheet. To print on that, you will be using a inkjet heads to contains the wetting fluid to print the object and the shape of the fiber sheets, and where you will be using a polymer powder to over that fiber sheets, and which will adhere for wetting the layer. And once you remove that non-adhesive powder, so then you will be left with the cross section. Now you can stack all these layers, and then put it into the, just you heat these stacks, and it will get melted, and then you have a compressed to a fused layers, and finally you can remove your uncoated fibers through a chemical or through a mechanical post processing process. Then you will be left out with a fiber composite part. So that's what the developments are happening. Even you can able to make metals also. So there is a process called ultrasonic consolidation, and of course it may be a hybrid process, which you can see some tires. So it will be done through to what you call the ultrasonic welding. Basically you are using it here. So ultrasonic welding, the raw material is in the form of a sheets, and some tires will be welding and then followed by machining, that is for trimming operation. So you will be using a milling cutter also. So the welding, and then followed by milling, and this is what finally you will be getting a metal die. So which you can see, the raw material is a tape, and then so you are able to weld, and then you are able to machine tire by tire, different tires, and then the smoothing or the finishing with the end mill cutter, and then finally you will be left out with the metal die, where you have started with the CAD model of the die, and then finally you have end with a metal die like this. So this is what the kind of ultrasonic consolidation process called. So it started with the CAD, and this is the metal die. So these are some of the developments are happening in the sheet lamination process. So this is the first process, as we already seen in the video also. But the biggest concern is the waste. So you have a lot of waste here, because of the cross-hatched boxes, and then we need to decube those boxes. And I am happy to say that I have worked on this machine, but not here in US. But anyway, this machine is no more, it's got outdated. So We have the MCAR machine. So if you explore what is this MCAR machine, so these are some of the parts made out of the MCAR machine. So as we already seen in the video, we have to start with some printing inkjet kind of a printing colors and adhesive the print and then laminate and cut the layers, and finally you can see how beautifully realistically we can make these parts through, and it's a less expensive machine also. Why? Because only paper and inkjet technology. So you may have XYZ resolutions, maybe 0.1 mm, and basically you may be using a photo realistic colors, which you can see how beautifully it got printed. And of course, coming to the ultrasonic consolidation from the Fabrisonic, so where, as I already mentioned, is a combination of CNC and laser contour machining. And of course, the welding or the ultrasonic welding is the one where it is getting welded together, and further CNC or even a laser contour machining will be used to cut. And of course, from the impossible objects, so which we can able to make fiber reinforced composites. So these are some of the fiber reinforced composites. And if you closely observe, but anyway, the other speakers may explore this. I don't want to go in depth. As I already mentioned, I am going to give an overview of these technologies, but we have a subsequent sections. So in the material aspects and other things will be dealt by the other speakers. So I don't want to get into this in detail, but just I want to give some overview. So which we can get a functionally graded laminates is possible here. So you can even go with an embedded electronics or the embedded sensors, and even metal matrix composites also possible with this, where you can see you have an aluminum titanium laminates, and you have aluminum fibers in the aluminum, that is basically a metal matrix composites. And even you can have a silicon carbide fibers which it got embedded, which you can see you have a metal laminate and then silicon carbide fibers are embedded. So this is the beauty of this technology. It looks like a big CNC machine, of course. So, but you can claim it as an additive manufacturing machine. And this is like a fiber composite thing where long fibers are there, and then thermoplastic material, the matrix materials will be, and you're going to get high performance composite parts. And these are some of the parts. And of course, process also we have seen through the video. Also, you have no, the sheet, the fiber sheet. On that, you have an inkjet printer which it's got printed, and of course, and then use the heat compressed these laminates, and you remove the unbonded area, and you will be left out with actual part. So this is about the fiber reinforced composites, how we can make it. And let me move on to the next process called powder bed fusion. So the powder bed fusion nowadays is very popular uh, because of several reasons. You will get very good accuracy. That is the number one. And of course, but it may be costly also. Um, Coming to this powder bed, so uh, basically you may use a laser or an electron beam. These are the two energy sources. So fusing through a laser or fusing through an electron beam. So fusing through a laser. So again, you try to distinguish the difference between the SLS, DMLS, SLM, and EBM. SLS was the technology originated from Texas University at Austin, and then started commercially by the 3D Systems. That was the selective laser sintering process exclusively for polymers. Even from the EOS, the similar technology called SLS for printing polymers, they got a technology. EOS and 3D Systems, these two were the players. And then recently you have other companies like Sinterit or Sintract. So basically these are the polymers. This won't support metal. It is only for the polymer. So if you want to come to the metal domain, so then either you have to go DMLS or SLM. So coming to this direct metal laser sintering or selective laser melting. So under this is predominantly for metals. So of course you have pioneers in this is EOS, no doubt in it. I am openly telling that the US is the pioneers in this technology, no doubt in it. And of course, 3D systems, SLM, nowadays the Renisha, and you have a concept laser, and you have other companies also adding. A very big list is there under this DMLS or SLM. But the difference is you cannot process metal here. You can process metal exclusively. So this is a partial melting technique, and this is a full melting technique. And the DMLS or SLM and the electron beam, what is the difference? It's almost similar, but you are replacing the laser with an electron beam gun. So that is what your electron beam melting. So the here also it is predominantly for the metals. So company like Arcam, now the GES bought over this company. So let me start with SLS process from 3D systems. So that was the polymer printing actually. So this is the polymer printing from 3D systems called selective laser sintering, called SLS. So SLS basically it uses the polymer powder. So the raw material is a polymer powder, so which it will be spread like a, basically it's a powder bed system. So we need to spread the powder onto the bed, and of course you have to have a laser to sinter basically these components. So the material, as I already mentioned, it is a nylon or like a polymer, nylon or polyamide or any thermoplastic. So you can see some other parts like unmanned aerial vehicle parts or any other parts. As usual, it has to start with slicing the model, and once you slice that and you send it to the machine through the software, and inside that you have a roller or a recoater, so which will spread the powder, and then the laser will come and sinter the powder particles, and where we can get this bonding of the particles together. So in that way, so it is getting printed. So laser will be used here, but here it doesn't require any supports. So, and which we can see a part build chamber, and you have a powder cartridges on either side. So the excess powder will be collected on the either side of the bins, and where your part will be fabricated in the part build area of the piston. So then once it is completed and you take out that piston, and then like it's like a cake of powder, and then take it to post processing station, and then you take out that loose powder, the cake of powder, and from that you can take out your part which it got printed or it got sintered. So in this way, so we can make the polymer parts by using this SLS technology, where these are some of the parts made out of SLS technology. We'll get very good strength. So where otherwise you cannot get through, maybe through FDM. So then you can come to this SLS process where you can get better mechanical properties. So this is about SLS from 3D systems. And coming to the DMLS or SLM. So this is predominantly, of course, with metal powders. So it will be starting with the metal powder. So on the laser, it works with the same principle like the previously. The only difference is the material is used earlier was the polymer, but this is the metal, and that too here you will be melting fully. So it is a full melting of the thing is happening here, and there it was a partial melting, which maybe binder may be coated previously with the polymer, earlier process called SLS, but here it's not that way. So it is getting full melting of the powder particles to the high power lasers. So you may be using high power lasers here rather than SLS. So again, like it starts with slicing, and once you do slicing, send to the machine, and I hope it works with the same like which we have. Yeah, so it will come down. So and finally you'll be having the metal part and do some kind of post processing on this. Some finishing tools, use the finishing tools to remove the supports and to enhance your even. So this is what it works. So this is any SLM or a DMLS will work in this fashion. So then RCAM EBM, instead of laser, you may be using electron beam, but rest will be same. So now this RCAM has taken over by the GE. So basically, as we know that GE, they required this aerospace parts. So aerospace parts exclusively, they have acquired these two technologies. One is this EBM RCAM technology from Swedish technology, and one more is concept laser, that is a German technology. So they acquired these two technologies. And of course, right now, whatever we are seeing, this is an RCAM electron beam melting. So the raw material is same like a powder. So the powder raw material will be taken, and it will be you have a fully automated powder integrated system here. And of course, being a electron beam, we need to create a vacuum. So you have a vacuum chamber here. So this is a vacuum. Everything is inside is a vacuum. So where the powder spreading mechanism is same as like previous the process previous technologies which we discussed. We have a recoater, and that recoater will spread the powder onto the bed. And now instead of laser, you have an electron beam. So that electron beam, and of course, which you have this vacuum chamber. Everything is doing another vacuum chamber, and your electron beam with a high powered electron beam, that is 6 kilowatt electron beam. So it will come and melt the powder particles onto the bed. So, and of course, it may be 50% faster than, yeah, they are using a dual electron beam. And this is the build volume. So which you can see the part also right now is going on is an aircraft blade, right? This is a turbine blade for the gas turbine engine used in the aerospace application, the gas turbine engine of their aircraft. So this is an titanium aluminide. They have indigenously developed, and they are doing in a mass production. We can put it in that way. Why? Because they are having around maybe around 60 or more than that the machines, and then they're 24/7 they're working. And of course, the challenge here is powder handling system, and should not catch up any metal particles during it may contaminate. So during cleaning or during loading of the you have some special care to be taken, some magnetic kind of things which we need to eliminate or remove that thing from the powder. And they have a system, different systems to feed this powder to the machine, and powder handling systems also, which we can see. So almost like a automated, and they are running for the industrial applications and the high productivity applications, where you can see this powder handling station, post processing station under the machine. So that's what they're recently they have acquired a Morris technology, that is a huge metal 3D printers they are acquiring across the world to meet their demands. And recently I came across one technology called Valo. So Valo is a very interesting technology. So it has unique advantages than conventional any powder bed system. So it's going to rewrite the rules of powder bed system, no doubt. That's what they are claiming. Let us see like whether it's going to rewrite the rules or not. So Valo system, of course, which the materials may be the same, which you're going to work on. So they are calling this as a Sapphire, Valo 3D Sapphire model of the machine. So it is built around what you call, of course, it has to start with the same process like a CAD model, which it should be. Um, of course, the same thing should be done here also. The laser, this is a laser based system, and these are some of the parts made out of. No, the biggest challenge in any powder bed system of metals is supports. So normally if you have less than 45 degrees of a future thing, normally we have to go with the supports, but they are claiming 45 is reduced to 5 degrees C, 5 degrees angle. I don't know. Okay, and then that's what they are claiming. It doesn't require it doesn't require any supports. That is their claim. So that is going to be a thing, and it's wonderful. So why? Because people are struggling about the supports, how to remove the supports, how to minimize the supports. But they are claiming that so it can be done without supports. Also, you could able to make the parts. So that is the story of this Valo technology. So, and of course, they are claiming that there is a closed loop monitoring system. So to monitor the melt pool thing, and then they are claiming that there is no risk of the collision of the recoater. So that is one more thing they are claiming. And of course, the powder handling also they made very smooth and automated powder handling system. That's what they are claiming. Yeah, this is what all about the Valo. They have as usual like different applications. This 3D metal 3D printed parts. So with this, we'll move on to some of the case studies. Or so anyway, my next speakers may explore all these process parameters and all. I am not going to touch all this, but this some of the parts which if you talk about SLS, it is predominantly a polymer, as I mentioned. So you have a nylon duct, so which is fabricated through 3D systems SLS machine, and this is through SLM machine. So it is a titanium bracket for the Airbus, and an electron beam, just we have seen in the video also. This is from GE case study, and they are claiming 62 EBM machines are operating 24/7. So that's what you see, how much demand they got. They are running 62 EBM machines across the world 24/7. So that is the thing. And of course, somebody was asking some orthosis, if I remember yesterday or day before yesterday. So how can we, which process is apt for making an orthosis? So here is the answer for you. So SLS, even I have already given the same answer during my clarification of the doubt. So we can see this is an orthosis which it got printed through nylon or kind of a polyamide through SLS process, 3D systems SLS process, it got printed. So as you already expressed your difficulty of cost, definitely it is a bit costly than FDM. No other go. So if you want to compromise the cost, you go with FDM. Otherwise, this will be the right choice for you. And UAS is claiming the surprisingly. So right now they are using a two laser system, but they are claiming 1 million diode lasers in array in 2021. This is what the R&D is happening in this direction. So we can see very soon still more developments. And of course, I will skip. And anyway, EBM we have already discussed, and Valo as already mentioned. So once you read this, so your mind will bobbling. Why? Because you know, like people who is working in the metal, they know that the difficulty of tackling the supports. So they are claiming that it's a support-free metal 3D printing. So that will bobble your mind. So intelligent fusion, like correct the deformation issues and any true print to design, and in situ metrology sensors. They are claiming they are incorporating software corrected for the deformations. That is a vital in any metal 3D printing process, and non-contact powder bed recoater. That is another one. This is what they have claimed. There are no supports while printing this part. So this is one they are saying, and simple design process and less post processing.
Sir, can I ask one question, sir? Rai Kumar, sir, can I ask one question here? Hello?
Okay. Yeah.
What type of sintering? Is it sintering or melting, sir?
Melting.
Melting only.
It is almost like.
It is like SLM only, almost. Right?
SLM is a commutator for the SLM. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Without support.
Yes, they are claiming. They are claiming. We don't know.
Okay.
Is it okay? Shall I proceed? Hello.
Proceed, sir. Proceed, sir. Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. So then you have a lot of developments. You have some rapid metal printing also coming up. So you have a multi-layer concurrent printing. So this is what, again, mind-boggling kind of a stuff, which here a novel recoating tool they are using it. You can normally lasing and recoating simultaneously. None of the powder bed system in the planet can do that. But these guys are claiming, so you can laze during the lasing, you can recoat. So that's the thing. And of course, multiple layer deposition. That is another wonderful thing if it is. And they're claiming it's the world's fastest and largest direct metal 3D printing. And of course, 55 times the market speed. And normally 1.96 kg per day. So that is the kind of a thing. But here they are claiming 113 kg per day. So that much speed. So they are claiming. And of course, they may be having a focused applications. They may be concentrating oil and gas. So maybe people like Reliance and other people, so they can afford to buy this, or they can. Anyway, oil and gas, you have mining and shipping, other applications, they have targeted this. And of course, the last point under this is a powder bed for ceramics. Of course, powder bed is predominantly for metals, but though ceramics is very challenging one. As you know, that people working like Dr. Srinivas and Dr. Vinod, they're from DMRL. They know the difficulty of processing the ceramics. They have been trying with their lens machine also. Yeah, it's a challenging one. So ceramics is differently. Altogether it will behave, right? It's not metal like it will porosity or other stuff. There will be a lot of challenge to process the ceramics, of course, but these people are claiming it is possible to do it by either do a direct SLS method or the silicon carbide ceramics with infiltration. This is the example they are quoting. And even indirect SLS, also some kind of sacrificial organic binder phase, which this is the example of that kind of indirect SLS process. And of course, they are claiming with the SLM also. So that SLM with low porosity materials, of course, they are claiming it. This is where you can see some alumina based ceramics. It got printed. This is from Canon. So surprisingly, these 3D printing, 2D printing guys like Canon or Xerox. Xerox is also now in the 3D printing, and surprisingly, Apple is also filed a lot of patents in 3D printing. So we can see a lot of developments in near future. So let me come to the last part of the thing. There's a directed energy deposition. I'm not going to explore. We have three more speakers. Just I will give you an overview. So kindly bear with me. So you have, of course, the one is a lens. Is the one which is emerged first under this directed energy deposition, that is a laser engineered net shaping, so predominantly for the metals. And of course, simultaneously, the CIACI is the one for the electron beam. They're using it instead of a laser. So for the this is a well-known lens process where the powder will be feeding through these nozzles, and you have an high power laser at the center, and then you will be creating a melt pool, and you will be keep on pumping the powder onto the melt pool and getting melted together, and then on the substrate it will fall. So this is a well established. The advantage here is, so you can vary the composition. So you have a different configuration of the nozzle. It may be a dual nozzle or a triple nozzle or a quadruple nozzle, or you have a different configurations. So of course, nowadays you have instead of 3 axis, it may be a 5 axis also, where you can minimize the supports also, or we can eliminate the supports. And of course, CIACI is the company. They use electron and beam as the energy source instead of laser. And the raw material is not the powder. Here is a wire. So here the raw material is now we can see this will be what you call. So the electron beam is the energy, and the raw material in the form of a wire. So it will be fed, but you may not get very good surface finish. As we know that any DED system cannot produce, it's a only near net, and then we need to further machine that part. So either you can use Inconel, stainless steel, titanium, tantalum. So so you can have a dual wire feeding also. You can have 5-axis kind of a stuff, and which we can see right now. You have the wire feeding and then followed by your electron beam. So and then after post processing or after machining, so you can get the final there. Of course it may be a kind of bigger setup, so it's like welding, right? So you may be feeling that you may have a dual wire also. I think my next speakers will explore on this, so you can have a lot of advantages once you come to this kind of hard printing, we can put it like. Why? Because it's like a welding, right? So anyway, you have another wire arc AM from Knox titanium. So almost it is a similar thing. Anyway, start with the, here you may be using the plasma arc welding and the wire, the combination. So it works with the same. So we can even listen from the experts on these. Two experts are there, followed by my lecture. So they are going to explore these technologies. So you have a powder either. So powder and the laser, of course, so you can do a repair also. That is the unique advantage of this DED process. You can do repair. And as just now we have seen, it is kind of a TIG welding. It's similar to the TIG welding once you talk about VAM. And then you have a near net shaped parts. And the beauty is that the FAA certified, that is a Federal Aviation Authority, like from US, that like how you have FDA, you have FAA for the aerospace clearances. So they are certified this process. And SIACI, anyway, we are going to have in-depth discussion by the previous next speakers, followed by me. But even you have a cold spraying method also, which is almost like now, which we can compare with the previous powder bed systems. So it may be even you can handle 45 kg per hour. So that much speed. So normally it is a 9 kg per hour previous systems, but now it may be a 45 kg per hour. So that much speed you can go. And of course ceramics can also be produced from Aptamec. They are claiming that the pure ceramics or composite ceramics, titanium carbide or tungsten carbide, and hydroxyapatite, carbon nanotubes, and pure ceramics, alumina, zirconia, silica. So let me come to the last part of my presentation, that is about the post-processing techniques in AM. So the post-processing techniques, so it will differ from process to process, as we understand that from the previous discussions also. So each method we have to follow different post-processing techniques. So sometimes you may even spend 70% of the cost towards post-processing, either in case of SLS or a binder jetting process. And coming to the FDM process, so either you may use cutting or either you may use dissolving of the supports. Means if it is a breakaway supports, normally you call, then manually you have to cut and we have to remove the supports. Otherwise you have some tank or some soluble, just you can dip it into that and automatically your supports will be dissolved. And you have even a very good post-processing technique, the solvent vapor, so which we can see. So this is an FDM part, through ABS it got printed. So after the solvent vapor coating, so you see how beautifully it has represented. So you have such kind of solvent vapor post-processing, or of course you can do sanding, you can do bead blasting, you can do tumbling, you can do coatings on it. So you can do all this stuff on the FDM fabricated parts. And coming to the SLS, so of course we need to remove the powder from the bed and remove the supports also. In case of SLS, of course if it is a metal, but if it is powder it doesn't require supports though. Okay. And then you have a bead blasting or a sand blasting is another way of improving the surface finish of the SLA parts. And tumbling and machining can be done on these parts. And coming to the SLA, among all the processes, SLA only we need to work with the what you call the chemicals. Some extent wherever you use the chemicals, maybe this guy, which it requires some kind of chemical washing or some kind of a TPM. There is a one solution called, that's basically a chemical which you use alcohol based chemical, and which we need to wash those parts. And of course, post curing is must. Why? Because any SLA part you cannot get 100% solid. So it may be around 90-95% solid only, but still there will be a jelly kind of thing in that. So then we need to, every time we need to do a post curing of SLA parts, and we need to remove the supports, and of course we need to, you can coat this SLA parts if needed, but SLA by default it will give very good glassy finish or more not transparent in nature. But still, if you need some kind of coating, on that, if you want to do some coating, yeah, you can do coating also. And coming to the jetting, so jetting is material as well as binder jetting. Coming to the material jetting, of course we may use a dissolution of the support material for the material jetting systems. And coming to the binder jetting systems, so we need to depowder and we need to debind and we need to sinter also. So these are the post processing methods we do use for the binder jetting process. And this is the typical SLM process which we need to remove the powder, and as already explained this. And these are some of the supports of the SLA or FDM, this FDM part, and which you can see here also. Either you can use a breakaway or use some kind of a solvent to do that one. So these are typical post-processing methods we need to do it in AM. But nowadays you have a very good business opportunity. People are coming out. So you have the machines developers, and then you have an indigenous post-processing machines suppliers also. You can find more nowadays. Even they may use some kind of what you call the extrusion process initially, and then release the link, and then you have the part extracted and the specific ink color. So now you have companies like Rise. So this is a post processing unit for the FDM, so which we can see after FDM parts, which you can even add the colors. But basically you may surprise that FDM cannot produce as such this, but you make through FDM, and then you put it in this, and doing all this, you can able to get this. That's wonderful, right? So otherwise you should have some kind of inkjet technology or a material jetting technology to get these kind of parts. But FDM with this post processing as well, you can get such kind of a thing. And support removal and support finish, and of course the FDM parts, this is after surface finish, and this is the SLS part, the metal, and this is the post processing one. And of course this is the post processing unit from the post process company. So they do use a 2 perpendicular and single axis jet streaming, and which comprises of compressed air and detergent, and then suspended solids and targeted blast. So nowadays you have a very good business for the post processing companies also. So they are coming out these kind of post processing units, which is supplemented with the OEMs of this metal or polymer printers. And coming to the last part, like surface finishing, how do you improve the surface finish, or what is the importance of surface finish? Of course, if you want to compete, or if you want to compare with the traditional manufacturing methods, until unless you doesn't have some kind of surface finishing methods, so you cannot compare, or you cannot get the on par with the traditional making of either traditional in the sense, not, I am not comparing with the machining, but maybe casting and forging. So you have the corrosion and oxidation resistance you want to improve, and definitely you need to have some surface finishing process. And surface friction and wear, tensile strength, definitely it will increase, and bending fatigue, and cellular and biofilm adhesion and appearance also will be improved once you improve the surface finish, right? And this is an example part which it got printed as built, and then this is after finishing. And methods used for this kind of finishing, you have plenty of methods available in the market. So either you do sanding, polishing, even machining, and you have a vibratory kind of a grinding, abrasive flow machining, short peening or blasting, and you have a chemical etching and electro polishing, vapor smoothing, and you have electro deposition, dyeing, spraying, dip coating. whatnot. You have several things which you have color varieties, so which it can be automatic colors will be done. So you have several methods to do this. And of course, you have a super finishing or a kind of a unique, a novel approaches to improve the surface finish. As we know that as built, you may get this kind of surface, maybe around 10 microns REA value or 15 microns REA value, something like that. But it's a double digit. Definitely, it's not a single digit. It's a double digit REA value. But after dye electro polishing, so we can get even less than 0.1 REA value. So you have such kind of a dry electro polishing, or even you can use a laser polishing also. So laser polishing, after laser polishing, this is a knee implant. This is a cobalt chrome made SLM part, and then you can even further improve this REA value to 0.3 REA value microns. So that much you can do. And the complex geometries, and you have a micro scratch free, and you have a preserved geometries and reproducibility. And of course, you can do a selectively micro scratch free and fast. And these are some of the advantages. Particle free and reproducibility and surface densification also can be done through the laser polishing. That is from Fraunhofer's reference. So of course, we can do a surface smoothing in AM parts in order to improve the performance. In this case, there is a one case study. This is RF horn antenna. So this is before coating. See, after surface smoothing, which you can see the performance of this antenna got improved. So that's what where you can even enhancing the performance of the systems, any system to as built or the traditionally manufactured, or you have here enhanced thing also. And finally, of course, we need to talk about the density of these parts, so which we can see. So this is the people are claiming that it's a 99.99% dense, but still you can see this is one of the SLS or EBM printed part where you can see still some kind of a trapped powder or some kind of looseness here. So if you see in the microscopic level, so this is the before the HIP operation, and this is after HIP, that is a hot isostatic pressing. So you may go up to 30,000 psi and 2000 degrees C. It is something like cooking in a cooker, right? Pressure cooker. So similar way, as you know what how a HIP will work. Similarly, you can make almost like 100% dense after doing this hipping. So that's what we can use this hipping operation for improving the ductility and fatigue resistance critically and high performance materials. And of course, we can even remove the micro cracks and remove the printing defects, anything is there, and which eliminate the micro porosity. So this is what where you can subject it to the hipping process. And of course, hipping is not so it's a costly facility, of course. And then finally, let me conclude with this slide. So what are the challenges, the fabrication challenges in AM? Of course, we have a lot of challenges, though we are claiming that there are a lot of developments are happening in and around. But still, we need to face a lot of challenges. So right from the beginning, like where the challenges, maybe say standardization of the processes is still lagging. You cannot standardize these. It may be varying from machine to machine, or maybe within the machine. Somebody was asking in the first lecture of mine was asking like how to get the repeatability, right? If you make one part, or if you make 10th part, one part and the first part and the 10th part, is it getting the same properties? So that is $1 million question. Of course, you can't get. The reasons are many. So, and of course, you don't have any standardization of this process. So then there is a huge challenge before us, like how do you ensure that you have made correct part or not? Is the quality, whether you made a defect free part, we don't know, right? So then that is the biggest challenge. So the run to run, you're going to get the variation. Reasons, several reasons, not only single reason which we need to talk. But that's what the consistency of the source material right from the beginning. Also, maybe you take a batch of powder, maybe having a different sizes. You're talking about only the average size of the powder particle, but it may be around 40 or 50 microns. You are saying that is the average size of a powder particle, but we don't know the consistency of the source material in terms of that depends on your powder production technique. Of course, like kind of atomizers you may use. Nowadays you have very good atomizers, though. Anyway, Professor Manja is going to exhaustively talk on that. But though you have a lot of challenges to work or producing these kind of a powders at the consistent fashion. So right from the beginning of the powder raw material thing, and of course during the process. So whether you have some kind of a in situ monitoring system to monitor your process, not only monitoring, if there are some errors are happening, some deviation is coming, so you have multiple monitoring system and you have heat maps. Okay, fine. So that is the one step. But what is the goal should be, if you encountered some problem, how it will be getting corrected online in situ, right? So that's the challenge before us. So how do you make this error correction in situ? So then we need to think in that. So that may be the reason. And one more reason, so you can keep on hunting for the causes why you are not able to make a repeated or the repeatability of the parts, especially metal parts. Maybe polymer also, but polymer, it's not expensive, but metal is so expensive. But you cannot, no, you doesn't have a luxury uh, to play with the metal. Why? Because even some of the machines, so high-end machines, so if you are talking about say 280 or 350 sized build volume, so then we need to minimum run 50 kg or 60 kg of powder. So per kg of powder, it may be costing you around say 20,000, or if it is a titanium, it may be 40,000 per kg. So do you have a luxury and do you have a luxury to waste this titanium powder per kg 40,000 for experimenting it? You cannot, right? But anyway, some extent we can do simulate, and we have a speaker from 3D Systems, or Sri Rapid Indian agent from the 3D Systems. So we are going to see in the afternoon how we can simulate. So we have some very few softwares like 3D Expert. So it is all-in-one solution. Why I'm calling this as all-in-one solution is, so you can, as we discussed in the pre-processing stage, or the design procedures of 3D printing during my lecture. So we have discussed how do you correct the errors in what you call the STL file. The triangles, or Professor Krishnanand was given a beautiful explanation how these errors will mitigate, or first it will be sourced and then it will be mitigated. Maybe basically a kind of repair meshing algorithms or the softwares that we need to keep one separate software like a Magix or any other contemporary software for exclusively doing corrections, right? And for generating the supports and doing the simulations. Why? Because for doing the simulations, you may go with kind of other softwares like MSc software, right? So there is a huge business for the people to know. So my software, I don't know, this is the strategy of the business strategy of the software developers. So I can give my software, so it will do only correction of the STL files. So that may be the 1/10 part of your process, right? So maybe 1/10 of your job. So are you able to spend such a expensive software for the 1/10 of your process? But if you have a single all-in-one solution with single software, so definitely you can save a lot of cost, money, right? Right. Then you can quote less to your customer. Otherwise, we have to quote heavily. That penalty will be paid onto the your customer, right? But anyway, so not only 3D systems, you have a very few softwares can capable of identifying the errors in the STL file, correcting them. Simulation not only during the process, even post-processing simulation also can be done with the 3D systems, 3D expert. Anyway, I asked Lokesh to give as much as he can, but I don't know. Let us see. But we have given only 1.5 hour time to him to discuss all the capabilities of this all-in-one solution, including simulation of your post-processing simulation. I am talking about. I'm not talking about the simulation of in situ processing. I'm talking about the simulation of post-processing. So one challenge is these are the challenges. Once you have a software which can do a simulation, definitely we can save a lot of money. Otherwise, it's a trial and error. Literally, it's a trial and error. Yes. You don't have standards. Literally, it is trial and error. So you have a post-processing requirements. Of course, the post-processing requirements, you have to have an impact on the cost, definitely. And of course, not only cost, your post-processing will add the time for doing that post-processing, and of course, it will know quality also. So the post-processing is another challenge, like where we need to pour more money and spending a lot of time in order to get the quality, improving the quality of the part. Why? Because we are not getting a mirror finished or even a relatively finished. You are going to get only the near net shape, especially if you take DED. So it is so bad in terms of accuracy. Then definitely we need to pour a lot of money to do a post processing though. And the next part of other challenge is the certification of the parts. So the certification, the certifications is very crucial. It may be applicable for certain industries like medical or aerospace. Why? Because those are the critical applications where if you are implanting something into the body of a patient, then you should not have some adhere effects onto the native bones or the native organs, right? So then we need to have some certification of these parts. That is one thing. In case of a medical, the FDA or any authorities should be certified, yes, this material is certified biocompatibility. And similarly for the aerospace applications, so yes, this material or this product as such can be certified, so it can be included in your gas turbine engine. So it's a most critical part. If something went wrong, so then the entire flight, maybe a Boeing maybe carrying some 500 or 600 passengers. So this is all about 600 life of 600 plus another 10 air hostess, maybe 610 life of we should not play that. Of course, we need to have FAA certified material or parts or the products. So we need to distinguish them, like how it's good and bad. How do you distinguish? Definitely you must have some certified or a qualified or some standards should be there, either in terms of ISO or ASTM or ASM or a DIN, whatnot. So we at least Indian standards, I don't think so Indian standards in AM they are working out, but we need to have a kind of certification and qualification of these parts. So that is also another challenge in front of us. And new potential health hazards. Why? Because of course we need to use some respirators. These particles are very, maybe 30, 40 micron size particles, there will be a chance to inhale. So definitely you must have some kind of a precautionary, and especially if you're working with reactive materials also, like which we have to be some kind of a health hazardous. That also is a challenge in front of us. Particles or some fumes, so that is another issue or another challenge which we need to tackle. So then integrity of the digital data, so that is another challenge now. Now this data is you have a different database managements. Now you have a recent cloud based databases which your cloud should be protected, right? So now it may be biowar. No, I don't want to get into the criticism, but like China or other guys, but maybe intentionally or other way around it. But now we are facing biowar, but very soon we are going to face digital war. So we are going to face a digital war. I'm not joking. We are going to, next war will be in terms of digital. So how you are able to secure your data through a blockchain or any kind of a mechanism, how to protect your data. Why? Because your data is open, or like it can be a cloud based, and whether your cloud is protected from the hacking or from the threats which but you must have some kind of a blockchain technology or to secure the data, or things like that, right? So, and of course the last but not the least, so then IP. So protecting the IP is the biggest challenge, especially for the AM. So AM is rewriting the rules. It is not leaving the rewriting the rules of IPs, or what you call your patent mm, kind of issues. How do you protect your IPs, or how do you protect your patents? So that is the biggest challenge in front of us. Somebody else should not know, copy or anything like say. So that is another challenge which we need to face. Yeah, I think I have planned like this, so I can stop the presentation here. Then I can take the questions if you are having any questions. Hello.
हाँ सर, इधर chat box में हम questions हैं मिले
Hmm. So then we can open for the oral.
Oh, ऐसा.
Hello. So if no more questions, then you can run the
Hello.
quiz.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
good morning.
I have a the question regarding the application of AM part in fatigue environment. So, just like in a turbine, a rotating machinery, or any aerospace component, there is subjected to the fatigue environment. So the AM part surface quality is poor. So how will you justify for the fatigue strength uh, uh, for in the application of fatigue environment?
Now, as built, it may not be, but you're having a post processing techniques to improve that also, na. So then we will be, it will be subjected to post processing techniques to improve that thing. So then we need to have the post processing technique to incorporate on that. As built, it may not be, but it should be further improved through any post processing technique which can improve the fatigue strength. Of course, it should be done. Yes.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes. Narayana, quiz run చేసావా?
Post చేశాను sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in wire additive manufacturing,
Mhm.
sir, how to control the formation of oxides, sir? Because it is an open process.
Mhm.
Am I correct? It's an open process, or
No, it's not going to be the open process. It will be a closed. Yes, Dr. Manjaya. Hello. So we have a expert
No,
here.
sir.
Dr. Manjaya, can you respond to his question?
Yeah, what is the question, sir? Can you
How do
repeat
you
the question?
since it's a wire additive manufacturing, is it done in a closed chamber or open, sir?
It's in open, sir.
So then the formation of oxides will be more, no, sir?
Yeah, formation of oxides will be more. That's why we are putting more argon impingement for deposition, sir. The shielding gas gas rate will be the more for protecting the beads.
Okay. So you are creating a protective zone around the weldment area,
Yes, yes.
but in open air.
Yeah, it's in open.
So scaling up the job can be one major advantage, sir, in wire additive manufacturing. So you can take up very big jobs also.
The thing is, we can do a very complex surface and a very big parts also we can able to manufacture very quickly. The production rate will be faster in this VAM process.
Yes.
Yeah.
So mainly for medical implants, do you have any specific manufacturers?
Medical implants, we have to go for only for the SLM process.
Okay. So in India, who are all the leading manufacturers, sir, in any
They are
suppliers who
doing
make?
GE and Wipro. They are GE and Wipro and as well as DMLS.
Okay.
This Intech Private Limited is also started these things.
Okay.
No, Palaksha Reddy garu. Hello.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Actually,
Yes, sir.
Intech DMLS, they are claiming
Okay.
they have made a indigenous metal 3D printer. That is the first Indian company to
Yes, sir.
develop not US. US is a German company. They
Yes, sir.
used to they were the service providers for the UOS. You are correct. Intech DMLS is the service provider for the UOS German machines as well as their service bureau for producing the parts earlier. Now,
Yes,
now they I think recently they launched also, or they are about to launch. If I am correct, they are about to launch their machine that is indigenously made in India. First
Yes.
metal 3D printer, Indian made or Indian developed under Make in India program.
Yes,
That
sir.
is, there is one this thing, the Modi has launched. So under that,
Yes.
so they are the one. I think very soon they are going to launch. I think so. The Intech DMLS, they are claiming. I think it may be costing around 1.5 or 1.8 crores of rupees for the metal AM machine. Yes, yes, yeah.
Sir, for magnesium implants, right now no machine in the world, no, sir. As of now.
Magnesium, I never come across AM and magnesium making.
Yes.
The,
So mostly titanium based.
maybe Manjaya.
You can use the existing machines itself. No need of any other machine for magnesium, right? You can use the existing SLM machines or DMD machines for making the implants. Using the SLM, this magnesium port also we can do it. No worries.
So any safety issues, sir? Because of course it is done in the inert atmosphere.
Yeah. No, actually this DMD SLM you can do it in a closed environment.
Yes, sir.
Only I am telling about VAM process we can do in the outside.
Okay.
No, Palaksha Reddy garu. My question to you is whether
Yes, sir.
whether magnesium is a biocompatible is certified by the FDA. You should not use as for our wish for the medical implantation especially. So it should be a FDA approved material. But whether magnesium alloy is FDA approved for the biocompatibility, so that we need to check before we implant it. There will be several regulations and several clearances we have to take before you implant it. You have to do some kind of in vivo, in vitro tests, and then you have to prove that it is not harming to the human body. Means in such a way that you have to do some animal tests on the big animal, small animal, and then you have to prove
Yes,
that
yes.
you have to submit to the FDA people saying that this is what we have developed, and then can you give a certification for the biocompatibility?
Yes,
Then you have to approach the FDA people.
Yes.
Then only we need to venture it into the body, that is, you venture it into the implant. But
Yes, yes.
I never come across magnesium is a biocompatible and implanting it. So that is my knowledge goes, but I don't know. But I never come across such kind of alloy to use for the biocompatible implantation is done. Yeah.
Professor Shankar Narayana TSN from South Korea is working on that, sir. Magnesium for biomedical application.
But whether it is approved by FDA
Yeah.
or any other authority should be.
He is trying to add with some alloying with that magnesium like AZ series, and he was doing some treatment for that magnesium alloy, sir. Then he was trying to implement. He has some published some few articles on these things.
Yeah, that may be the research, or that may be he may be exploring it. Now I'm talking about the commerciality of the.
Actually, it is not approved.
Yeah. That's thing. Once it should be commercially come, then it should go through all these certifications and clearances by the appropriate authorities to give on that. Why? Because we have been working in the medical area. Then we came to know that there will be several formalities to complete once if you want to implant into the human's body.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
is
Yes.
the.
Sir, can you repeat the professor name, sir? Shankara?